Manchester United are not planning to have a mass squad overhaul as Rúben Amorim is tasked to get the best out of the current squad as he starts officially training today. Ineos have identified two players they believe can thrive under Rúben Amorim. Yoro is expected to be available for the first match against Ipswich. We've got Pogba news and an Eriksen update to run through. In a rundown of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, please smash a like on the video. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with Rúben Amorim. So Fabrizio Romano said the first training session today for Rúben Amorim at Manchester United. So it's officially his first training session. There's not been any official photos or videos or anything that I've seen at the time of recording this video. No doubt something might come out a bit later on around Rúben Amorim. But first training session officially today. Romano seems to have a bit of inside information regarding Amorim, so I think he's well connected anyway. He's one of the best journalists in the world regarding football. But he seems to have some kind of inside information, I think, with Rúben Amorim. So he's definitely one to pay attention to, I think, going forward, because he seems to have a bit of an inside track to what's going on there. But Rúben Amorim's first training session at Manchester United will be today, waiting for some photos and bits coming out as well. So that's exciting. Mike Keegan has said that Rúben Amorim has already impressed his management with his confidence and charisma during his first week at the club. I was quite impressed with his interview that he did, if you haven't seen it. I actually thought he came across really well, and I liked how he kind of handled himself. So I could see that, actually. I do think he's got a bit of character around him, bit of charisma. I think he answered the questions really openly and honestly, and in a really kind of articulate way as well. So I was super impressed, being honest with you, with Rúben Amorim's first interview that he did on was it Friday, I believe, last week. So yeah, I can see that being true. Now, there's been a really interesting update coming from James Ducker in The Telegraph, which we're going to run through, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of these. So firstly, James Ducker said, Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada will give Amorim time to assess the squad and see how players adapt to his approach and methods before they start to make any definitive plans for next summer's window. Now, he's not the first person that said that. It's just another credible source that's confirming what we've already been mentioning, or what I've already been bringing you on this channel anyway. I think the Muppeteers have said it. I think Fabrizio Romano has said it in the past. Let me put my teeth back in. There's similar thing where effectively everybody's going to be given a clean slate at United, so it's kind of a reset, clean slate. Amorim's going to come in, be allowed to assess the squad. He obviously has a specific style of play in mind, a specific tactic. Obviously, talk about the 3-4-3 formation that he kind of prefers to use, and then they're going to let him kind of dictate, well, actually, what positions we do need to strengthen going forward, and then the club are going to go and recruit for those particular positions, because there might be some players that we've written off that might do really well under Amorim, and vice versa, some players that we think are doing really well that might not fit the system. So our transfer priorities could totally change. So James Ducker, just another credible source, kind of confirming that story anyway. But he done it, and in the article, though, he had some really interesting things to say. So he said, Rúben Amorim is set to operate on a more modest budget to Erik ten Hag at Manchester United, and will be tasked with maximising the untapped potential in the squad as the club aim to end the damaging and costly cycle of mass overhauls, which is really kind of interesting. So effectively, according to that part of the report, and there are some more quotes and comments and bits that we'll run through in a second, a more modest budget to Erik ten Hag and maximising the untapped potential in the squad. So effectively, what it looks like, Ineos is saying, is we think we've got good players here. We want you to maximise the kind of current players that we've got, and we're not going to be going through this cycle of constantly changing a lot of the kind of squad. Yes, we're going to make signings. Of course we are. Every club makes signings, and yes, we've got players that we need to remove. But it's not going to be on the scale that we maybe seen in the past, because I do think Ineos want to come away from this building a squad for a manager. They want to build a squad and get a manager that can get the best out of the squad. So obviously, according to that, they think that they've probably got a decent enough squad anyway that still needs tweaking. We still need areas to improve. But as going back to the first point around, Amorim's going to have time to assess, that's probably the right thing to look at, which positions we actually do need going forward, strengthening those areas rather than having this big churn of players where we're getting rid of, where we're bringing in all of Erik ten Hag's former Ajax players and then getting rid of them again. Do you know what I mean? The same with, like, we're bringing in loads of Mourinho's ex-players and players that he wants and then getting rid of them again. Do you know what I mean? That it's unsustainable to keep doing that. You need to build a squad and a team and then hopefully get a manager that can get the best out of those players. And that's what it looks like, the kind of model that Ineos are going down that road with. James Ducker also had the following to say: the new Manchester United hierarchy have no plans under Rúben Amorim to rip up the squad, as they feel it is capable of delivering far more and are determined to move away from a culture of persistent upheaval they believe to be a financially unsustainable and destructive to coherent squad building. Højlund and Mason Mount are cited as just two examples of players United are hoping can thrive in a new environment. So interesting there again, similar thing where they're saying, look, there may not be a massive squad overhaul that we're all expecting, because Ineos and all the hierarchy, Jason Wilcox, Barada and Dan Ashworth, feel that we've actually got a decent enough squad as it is that doesn't need massive upheaval. We just need somebody to come in and get the best out of the players that we've got. Interesting that it mentions Højlund in there. I think Højlund's been kind of misused. I think he is a really talented young striker. We're just not giving him any chances to score. Like, no striker's going to score a lot of goals in the current setup because we literally create zero chances for him in most games. Interesting, Mason Mount. I mean, Mason Mount is a player that we've not really seen much of, could potentially, massively improve the first team and the squad, but he's just never fit. And I don't know whose fault that is. I don't know if it's Ten Hag's fault or the training methods or what, but, good luck getting the best out of Mason Mount if he's just not available. Obviously, if he is available, I think he could be an important player in the team and in the squad. Like, you could see, Højlund, Mount, Fernandes, front three potentially, and then one of Rashford and Garnacho maybe in the wing-back positions if Amorim's brave enough to go down that route. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not a bad front three. It's just he's never fit, and I don't know whether Amorim can change that or not. If his body's broken, his body's broken. But yeah, I do think it would be, definitely a player that could help improve the team and the squad if you can get him on the pitch, and it's a big if at the moment with Mason Mount. But again, going back to the kind of overall of the report, looking like, according to James Tucker, if this report is to be believed, and it is a credible source, saying that they're not maybe going down the route of a massive squad overhaul as is being predicted by other kind of media outlets or by other kind of channels and stuff like that as well, because ultimately Ineos believe they've got a squad there that's capable of doing things. Yes, it will need tweaks. Yes, we're still going to make signings and need signings, but that maybe not in a massive way that a lot of people are reporting on. And then James Tucker also said that Manchester United are unlikely to be particularly active in the January transfer window unless an opportunity presents itself. Players leaving or injuries or other factors create a problem that has to be addressed. And again, that's kind of like some of you have been mentioning that in the comments as well around January. We don't know what funds we've got available. I do think that if the opportunity arrives, so to get one of our targets, then according to the Muppeteers recently, he said that they're willing to go for it. It just depends on if it's the right players. So I don't think they're going to sign players in January for the sake of signing players in January. If it's one of their future targets that they want to go for, like Naipan, for example, that we've been heavily linked with over the last few days, is available, could be an opportunity for us to go and get that player that we would maybe want in the future anyway. But they're not going to have like a massive, there's not going to be like massive changes or anything in the January window. But there might be the opportunity to go and get like one or two players depending on injuries or how the squad performs or whether we are massively, we know we're short at left back anyway. Not short at left back, we've got, two decent left backs in Shaw and Malacia, but they're just never available. But if they become fit, maybe that left back position doesn't become a priority. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, interesting kind of updates from James Ducker there. Let me know in the comments what you think about all of that and how you kind of interpret it. I've given a little bit of my opinion on it, but I'm always interested in hearing yours. But going off of that report, it kind of like, in summary for me, it felt a little bit reading it a little bit like Ineos have said, look, we think we've got a good enough squad to be not necessarily challenging for the league, but definitely better than where we are in the league position currently. And I would agree with that. We're not, I do think that we've got a squad that should be competing for top 4 this season, at least anyway, bare minimum. Do think that we've had, problems misprofiling players in the past. I mean, I look at a lot of players and I think, God, we've misused them, or not playing them in the right position, or not even playing them in some cases and preferring other players to play in that position. And effectively, it looks like Amorim's been kind of coming. That's why he's got the head coach role now, not a manager, to come in and say, right, we think we've got a good enough squad to be in this position or in this position in the league. We want you to get the best out of these players. And hopefully with someone like Rúben Amorim, who does have that charisma, does have that kind of personality, going off of his interview, he's talking about team and, and character and all of these things as well. Do you know what I mean? Maybe he is the right man to kind of come in and install that in the players and get us playing as a team and get us playing in a system and get us playing in to add some character and, show all of this on the pitch as well. So maybe, and obviously Dan Ashworth, Barada, Jason Wilcox are way more qualified to be making that sort of assessment than I am as a fan or an observer watching from afar. I'm just a football fan with an opinion, like most of you is probably watching this video. So maybe they do see things differently. Maybe they are kind of looking at it and say, well, actually, we don't necessarily need a mass overhaul because we've got good players in the team. We've got good players in the squad. We just need somebody to come in and get the most of them. And that's what it kind of felt to me reading that report. That's the way that kind of Ineos are going down. Obviously, we are going to sign players, though. We're going to need to, let players go that don't fit the system and stuff. But is it not going to be like on a massive scale? That's probably widely being reported as like this big kind of reset and massive squad overhaul. We've never done that anyway, though. I never really kind of pay attention too much to those stories because every time you get a new manager, it's like, oh, we're going to totally overhaul the squad. And it never happens. We might do like 2 or 3 signings or 3 or 4 signings and, 2 or 3 players will leave. But ultimately, it's not really, not really the done thing, is it? You can't buy 11 players and sell 11 players in one transfer window. That's unrealistic. The one thing I would say, though, in kind of, contradiction to the report, we are going to need a lot of players, though, in the summer because to my maths, we've got Tom Heaton, Johnny Evans, Harry Maguire, Eriksen, Lindelof. Trying to think who else, if I've missed anybody. 5 players there that are all out of contract. So there's 5 players that you're potentially going to need to replace anyway. And that's without looking at the likes of an Anthony who might not work, or, a Casemiro if they do want to get him off the wage bill. Do you know what I mean? So actually, I think through default, we're probably going to need a bit of an overhaul of the squad anyway. But I think it's, so it's one of these. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. I'm going to be really intrigued to see how the players do perform under Rúben Amorim. I'm really, really interested to see whether he is, whether he can get the best out of these players, whether he stops misprofiling the players, playing them in their best positions with the right kind of tactics and formations. It's going to be really interesting to see. But let me know what your thoughts are overall on that kind of report from James Tucker, because I found it really interesting. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. I know you will anyway in the comments. But yeah, let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now let's move on to some other news. So Leny Yoro, provided he suffers no setback this week, it seems possible that Leny Yoro could be part of the Manchester United squad against Ipswich on Sunday. So that's positive, especially if we're going to switch to, the 3 at the back. I think he would be massively, influential to play that kind of right-sided, Yoro on the right, De Ligt in the middle, Martinez, hopefully, if he's not injured, on the left-hand side. So whether he would start him immediately, though, will obviously depend on his fitness, because he has been out for a few months, or whether he would be on the bench. That's probably more likely, but, good to have him back because he's highly regarded as, there was reports the other day saying that Ineos and Rúben Amorim and stuff see him as a generational player. So really interesting to see how he comes back in and how he can improve the squad. Now, mentioning just briefly then is one of the players that's out of contract. So Manchester United and Christian Eriksen are still expected to part ways at the end of the season. No negotiations taking place over a new deal, while Amorim's opinion will also be considered, but Eriksen's expected to leave. That came from Fabrizio Romano. I don't think that comes as like breaking news. We've known for a while that Eriksen's out of contract and there is no reports or talk of him being offered a new contract. So he is expected to leave in the summer, potentially in January if we get an offer for him, because it's either leave him, let him go for nothing, or potentially get a few million quid in January. So we need to keep an eye on that one. And then there was loads of reports yesterday regarding Paul Pogba potentially coming back to training, which I know is a very divisive split opinions from the comments on the video that I covered yesterday regarding Paul Pogba and bringing him back to training. But you can all relax. It's not happening. Further confirmation, no contact between Manchester United and Paul Pogba. Reports on him set to train at Carrington are not true. And that came from Fabrizio Romano. So we can kind of put that story in the bin. Pogba is not coming back to United to train, according to Fabrizio Romano, who is one of the most credible, I think, behind David Ornstein. David Ornstein's still the GOAT, in my opinion. But Fabrizio Romano, one of the most credible journalists when it comes to that, saying Pogba is not coming back to United to train. That was the reports yesterday. So some of you will probably be pleased with that, going off of your comments in yesterday's video. So let me know what you think on today's updates. Let me know what you think about the report from James Ducker. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. Love to hear your opinion, so get involved in the comments. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.